Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. One of the biggest surprises for this Texas A&M program in 2023 was three-star true freshman linebacker Taurean York, who not only was one of the best linebackers in the SEC last year, I think he can be one of the better linebackers in the country. Heading into 2024, the instincts that he showed as a true freshman at that linebacker spot, extremely impressive. I think highlights probably one of the flaws that we have in the recruiting services right now in terms of Taurean York maybe didn't check all the boxes in terms of the ideal linebacker frame that you want. But you go back and watch his film from his 2022 senior year at the high school level. This is a guy that just knows how to play the game. And you saw that as a true freshman for Taurean York, a guy that we're extremely excited to get into the film to talk a little bit about what he brought to this Texas A&M defense. Before we get into it, as always, just want to say thank you to you guys. A massive shout out to the Texas A&M fans. This has been a program that, quite frankly, has been a blast to talk about over the last couple of months as Mike Elko has joined this program and taken over this program. Can't thank you guys enough for rocking with the fellas, whether it's on the recruiting trail, whether it's in the transfer portal. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And without further ado, let's get into this one. Dill, I know you spent a lot of time digging into the film on Taurean York. I'll give you the floor here. What's most impressive from this true freshman year?
I think you said it perfectly. It's like football isn't played in the gym or on the 40 time or in the track room. And again, I'm not sure Taurean York looked like the premier athlete on the field last year, but in terms of just pure play, instincts, getting to the ball and doing the things you want to see linebackers do, I mean, he did it at about as high of a level as I've seen a freshman in a little while. And that's what you're kind of like excited about going into next year is just naturally being in college another year, being in that type of strength program, probably growing a little bit, just physically maturing. I mean, if he puts just more athleticism into what he already does on the field, like you might be looking at a really special player.
That Tommy Moffitt impact in the waiver,
Sure.
I think certainly going to help Taurean York going into this offseason. Now, the thing I want to talk about with Taurean York, and yeah, you can talk about all the athletic traits you want on a linebacker deal. We see freak shows at the linebacker spot all the time. And I think the problem is they don't know how to diagnose what's going on in front of them. Consistently bad run fits all too often in the college football landscape. That's what you didn't see from Taurean York. This is a guy that was second in the team in tackles at 74 tackles, 8.5 for a loss, only missed 10% of his tackles for a true freshman that's adjusting to the college football level, an extremely low number. And I think the thing I want to talk about first is how well he gets downhill. You're talking about a linebacker that had 33 run stops in 2023. But the thing that kind of jumped out to me, an average depth of tackle in the run game of 2 yards down the field. What does that tell you about Taurean York? He is not a passive linebacker. He's looking to get downhill, make plays at or behind the line of scrimmage. And that's probably my favorite attribute that Taurean York brings to the table.
Because that's a very frustrating thing I think you see from a lot of college football linebackers is that playing side to side. And that's good. You want to be able to go side to side and cover the whole field, but you need to get downhill at some point. You can't be like a guy who's getting 100 tackles or something if too many of those are going for 5-6 yards, because then you're giving up a ton of yards as a defense. I think you're right. Taurean York, the way he attacks the line of scrimmage is very reminiscent of like how the Georgia linebackers were doing it under Dan Lanning, where you're like, oh, look at Quay Walker, Channing Tindall, just a bunch of guys coming out of the woods and playing really hard, really aggressive downhill ball.
Yeah, you fire up the film here, and I think the first thing that's kind of what you see is he is so quick to identify what's going on in front of him. And hey, I'm going to get downhill right now, pick through the trash, and go make a play. And again, a very sure tackler at the point of attack. And you see this all over the film, right? Take a look at Auburn. First play of the game, Taurean York playing that linebacker spot. Little read option here from Peyton Thorne. Taurean York plays it phenomenally. And I think partially what helps him make his plays at the line of scrimmage is he sees the game at a little bit of a different level. He gets to his spots extremely quickly, seeing a little of the read option here, going downhill, making a play tackle for a loss. You take a look at Taurean York and what he brings. I think the last play we want to see here that really kind of signifies what Taurean York brings to the table. 3rd and 1, short situation. Got to come up, make a play. Taurean York's first step to the line of scrimmage immediately, and he's getting beyond the line of scrimmage, making a play. This is a kid that, again, not necessarily the biggest linebacker you're going to see, but the instincts that he has, the ability to get to his spot is some of the most impressive that you'll see in the college football
And I
landscape.
think what's important to note is he plays in control. It's not like just chaos or like reckless
Yeah.
abandon at the line of scrimmage. Again, you got to be able to balance everything out. That's when you start to see like that special sort of instinct. Look, he's not out of control, plays in his gaps, doesn't, you don't see those big creases due to him, I wouldn't say, from Texas A&M. I mean, he's typically where he's supposed to be and fits it up and fits it at the line of scrimmage. But I think he combines everything together. It's not just aggression. It's not just a sense of like where he should be and what gaps he's supposed to fit. He does a good job tying everything together.
And you see so many linebackers that, again, some linebackers will be good tacklers in space, but then they struggle with the run fits and being in the right gap at the right time. I think another thing that really impresses me about Taurean York, and again, kind of sums up why I think he was so special as a true freshman, is his ability to pick through the trash and really just avoid blockers at the second level. You see him scrape below second level blockers at an extremely high level, right? Tight end trying to fit him in the run lane. Taurean York just, too fast, too quickly to his spot, and is a guy that, Dylan, we talk about this all the time. What's the best way to avoid second level blockers getting to you? It's beating those guys to the spot. And I think Taurean York consistently beats guys to the spot.
Yeah, and that is where it starts. It's about being in the spot. It's about beating linebacker blockers to it. I also think, frankly, you got to combine that with being able to use your hands. I think for a guy who doesn't have the most length in the world, really does a good job getting his hands on guys and not just doing that. I feel like all linebackers kind of gotten the memo on getting hands on and playing that way, but being able to actually shed blocks, using your hands to get rid of guys. I think he did that at an incredibly high level, in addition to doing what you kind of said, where he's just getting there fast enough where he puts himself in a great position to finish.
And he's probably a guy that knows he's probably not the biggest, most physical linebacker. So I got to win in different ways. I got to win between the ears here, identifying what's happening in front of me. Just another rep of, the design of this play is to get Taurean York blocked up at the second level. He's winning. He's at the line of scrimmage making his plays before offensive linemen can get up to the second level and put a body on him. Taurean York's a guy that just has incredible instincts, especially inside the tackle box. Now, the last thing I want to talk about, Dylan, I think this is truly kind of what separates really good linebackers at the college football level to those NFL caliber linebackers, and that is, what can you do in coverage, right? And when you're a linebacker, this is modern day college football. You are going to be tested in a lot of different ways. And Taurean York, not only instincts, but his ability to see what's going on in front of him, I think extremely impressive. Again, little misdirection, a lot of stuff going on in the backfield. You see Taurean York, see this from a mile away, right? Trying to leak Rivaldo Fairweather out into the flat. Taurean York sees it, finds Rivaldo Fairweather right in his hip pocket, making a play in space on 1st and 18. Those are the type of things that I think really stand out to Taurean York. And again, that type of stuff that is going to allow him to be an elite linebacker at the college football level for the next couple of years.
And I think you saw that in zone coverage too. He certainly looked, especially, you didn't see him get asked to cover much down the field. I wouldn't say in man coverage, did a lot of his work in the flats. But like, I think the clip you're about to show, if I've watched as much as I think I have and seen what you do, I think I know what's coming, and it is that sense of being in the throwing lanes.
Yes.
Almost like having the eyes in the back of your head a little bit, which is hard. You're just like breaking down Oklahoma film and like, man, these linebackers are dropping, but they're not getting the spots. They're not getting in windows. The middle of the field's wide open. Taurean York, and again, I don't have the sense. I don't know what it feels like to have it, but there is something like he's got eyes in the back of his head a little bit and does a really good job staying in the windows he's supposed to stay in, to make those plays over the middle harder than they can.
An incredible feel. And it's such an important aspect of playing linebacker these days with all the play action, with all the RPOs that offense is going to throw to you. You're a linebacker, you got to play the run, but when you see play action, you have to get back in your zone, get into the throwing lanes. You see Taurean York do this. This is probably the best example. And then again, Taurean York's not necessarily the longest linebacker, but again, consistently in those throwing lanes, you get a little play action here. Taurean York identifies it, has to get back into his zone, and he's a guy that just has a good sense of what's going on behind him. Knows the route.
You don't see him just sinking backwards. Like, how so many guys just stay on their track. They sink back at the initial angle. You kind of saw him cut his angle off, and follow where that wide receiver is going. I don't know if he saw it. I don't know how he got there, but that you just kind of saw that level of instinct that, again, very uncanny, especially for a young linebacker.
Yeah, uncanny. And I think, yeah, what you said best, like him exemplifying that type of stuff as a true freshman. I think the last thing that's worth noting that doesn't show up on the film, but extremely important, there's at times where Taurean York's the one calling the plays, calling the audibles, kind of telling people where to be and what their responsibilities are. Again, all from a true freshman, especially at the college football level where you're dealing with a lot of moving parts, guys in the transfer portal, young guys playing. To have a linebacker that just has such command of the defense is absolutely massive deal. We saw it with Devin Bush at Michigan, right? We're big Michigan fans. The impact that Devin Bush had, not only being one of, if not the best linebacker in the country for Michigan, but more importantly, kind of being the leader of that defense, being able to point guys in their responsibilities out, call what's going on in front of them. That's absolutely massive. And again, Texas A&M is going to have a lot of new faces on this defense, especially in the back end. Having a guy like Taurean York, who is probably the smartest player on the football field as a sophomore in college, is going to be a massive asset. I think he only gets better, like you said. Tommy Moffitt, get his hands on him a little bit, get the weight up, a guy that already has. I mean, he's a guy that had a track background. He can go sideline to sideline. You want to see him increase that physicality at the point of attack. That is going to happen for Taurean York. Kid that we're extremely excited about, an all-American caliber linebacker for
I
the
feel like
Aggies.
he just got overshadowed a little bit almost because Edrin Cooper was and Edrin Cooper was a freak. Like, I'm not trying to say Edrin Cooper didn't deserve his flowers because he was a monster, really dynamic. But man, I think Taurean York's steady hand at that linebacker spot allowed them to use Edrin Cooper in the way they used him, where he was rushing the passer, making a lot of plays in space, and being really disruptive.
And that kind of reminds me of probably the linebacker that might be playing next to him this year in Scooby Williams, right? Scooby Williams is a guy that sometimes struggles to be in the right place at the right time. I think that was probably his biggest weakness at Florida. But what we don't really question with Scooby Williams is a guy that's former top 50 national prospect, has the traits to be a very, very good pass rusher. When you have a guy like Taurean York right next to him that is as such in command of the defense, hey, we're going to let the leash off Scooby Williams. Let him go be the playmaker that he can be. I think Taurean York not only is a good linebacker in and of itself, but just allows other guys to do a lot of different things in this Texas A&M defense. Still, we got a lot of guys to work through for Texas A&M on the film. I think we're going to go to that defensive line. Nick Skirton sounds like a guy that we could be up next. Really appreciate the Aggie fans rocking with the fellas again. You guys have shown a ton of support. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.